Hey, Bastish B here for 64K, and welcome to another Commodore 64 special. And so you just saw, we're going to have a look at the Sir Arthur Pendragon series of games, all four of them on the Commodore 64. These were a series of action-adventure games released by Ultimate Play the Game between 1984 and 1986, and they were all exclusive to the Commodore 64 system. But before we get going here, let's take a brief look at Ultimate Play the Game and their history. Ultimate Play the Game was a British software company formed in 1982 by the brothers Tim and Chris Stamper. Both were ex-arcade developers. They formed Ultimate to take advantage of the rapidly growing 8-bit computer market and decided to focus on the ZX Spectrum initially, with massive popular hits such as 83's Jetpack and Attic Attack. They'd eventually branch out into other 8-bits as well, with Amstrad, MSX and C64 titles as well, some of them simple ports and others exclusive to their respective systems. By 1985, Ultimate was at its peak. The Stamper brothers sold the company and set up Rare. US Gold, the Ultimate purchasers, floundered with the license for a couple of years, which made the brothers in 1988 rebuy the game licenses back, now under the name Rare, and shifted focus into producing console games, and essentially became one of Nintendo's biggest third-party supporters. Huge financial hits in the 90s, such as the Donkey Kong Country series on the Super Nintendo, and later highly popular titles such as the N64's GoldenEye and Perfect Dark, really put them at the peak of popularity. Microsoft then swooped in around 2002 and bought the company for an astronomical $377 million, making them essentially exclusive developers for the Xbox brand going forward. And in my personal opinion, they were never able to really replicate the success of 80s Ultimate and the 90s Rare days ever again. And now let's start jumping into the Quadrilogy and start checking out these games in chronological order. We'll first be taking a look at 1984's The Staff of Karnath, set in a haunted castle. 1985's Entombed will be next, set in an ancient Egyptian pyramid. Blackwyche followed with a haunted pirate ship setting, and finally 1986's DragonSkulle, set on a remote cursed island. Sir Arthur himself would go through a number of physical changes per game, starting with his yellow and blue look and able to cast spells. Then the Indiana Jones vibe, with still the yellow and blue getup from Staff, with a complimentary baseball cap for Entombed. Then going completely gothic for Blackwyche, with black hair, moustache, a cape and a sword. And staying with that H.P. Lovecraft look for the end's DragonSkulle, now with the ability to throw magic fire orbs. And now we'll let the adventure begin. The Staff of Karnath was launched first in 1984 by Ultimate, part of a deal formed between the Stamper brothers and the Thomas brothers for a series of exclusive Commodore 64 adventure games. The Pendragon Quadrilogy all starred a single hero, Sir Arthur Pendragon, and his endless adventures, all games mixed in puzzle elements, exploration and arcade-style action into each adventure, and all had an isometric look and style to them. All these games were created by the Thomas brothers, Dave and Bob. Dave did the overall programming and Bob handled the graphics, generally speaking. Here's Dave talking about where his programming roots sort of started on the ZX80. When it finally arrived, I thought the thing was so dreadful I sent it back. His brother then bought an Acorn Atom. It was on this system that I learned to code. Although I didn't get around to writing any games on the machine, it was instrumental in giving me a start in the career I've had to this day. The story for Staff of Karnath puts you in adventurer Sir Arthur's shoes, as you have to investigate a haunted castle infested with all manner of ghosts, monsters and giant insects. Your goal is to destroy the staff before midnight, as seen by the clock in the bottom left corner counting down. In order to find the staff, you need to gather all 16 pieces of the pentagram and insert them in a basement obelisk, which will then reveal the location of the staff, which you can go and destroy. Easier said than done, that's for sure. Here's Dave talking about the early development of Karnath. I'd had an idea in my mind about creating a pseudo pseudo 3D adventure game set in a castle, which used a fixed perspective, as though you were looking into a doll's house. I did some work on the engine for it and created the main character, but my graphical skills at the time didn't extend to building the castle. However, my brother Bob was a trained technical illustrator, so he helped out with creating the castle rooms. We had both seen an old film called Jack the Giant Killer, and that influenced a lot of the visuals, especially the castle itself. I was also reading a lot of H.P. Lovecraft at the time, and that had a bearing on the storyline of the game and the title, the Staff of Karnath. Gameplay mixes a lot of exploration of the castle, light puzzle solving, and a lot of back and forth. You can only carry one piece of the pentagram at a time, so you'll be making your way all the way down to that basement pretty often. Fortunately, you can cast spells, which can either eliminate enemies or solve certain puzzles depending on the spell, but you constantly have to keep moving. As time is ticking down, you only have 6 hours. You also only have 1 life displayed by percentage. Fortunately, delivering a pentagram piece to the obelisk renews your energy back to 100%, but you still have to be very careful in this game overall. Here's Dave on pitching the initial idea to the Stamper brothers. We thought about showing it to Ultimate, but never really dreamt that the Stampers would be interested, given their almost legendary status even then. We really thought Karnath looked very nice and might be something they'd be interested in, though we were under no illusions that what we had created was of the same quality and general slickness of Ultimate Spectrum games. We had nothing to lose, so we gave it a shot. My dad actually bought this game for me from our local software shop in probably about 1985 on tape. I was a huge Indiana Jones fan, so he made the perfect choice. I'd never seen that style of isometric graphics before, at least on a home system. It made the whole adventure feel a bit more real for some reason. The colorful nature of the enemies and the castle itself, plus the sheer exploration of what was behind that next door, had me totally spellbound for weeks on end. And that intro tune is something I'll never forget, haunting yet spurring you on to discover more. For a 1984 release, it really pushed the boundaries of mixing adventure and action in a seamless way, and I'll never forget playing this game until late at night after everybody else had gone to bed. The backtracking and what felt like the random effects of the casting spells definitely didn't make things easy or even logical at times, but despite that, the game launched and was a big hit, selling 40,000 copies in Europe alone. No other game in the series would top its sales, plus the press were very positive, with Computer and Video Games giving it a Star Game Award in issue number 42 in 1985. Work on Entombed, the next entry, started immediately and was published in 1985. Entombed has you trapped at the bottom of an ancient Egyptian pyramid, and you basically have to find your way out and get back to the surface to escape. Here's Dave on the creation of Entombed. Entombed took the longest to create, and I decided to recode the original Karnath engine to allow for a much bigger area to explore. This was subsequently used in Blackwyche and DragonSkulle. Entombed was pretty much a massive improvement over Staff in so many ways, and still remains my personal favorite out of the whole series. The tomb is way bigger, with many floors to explore. You had multiple lives, and the endless backtracking was cut down significantly. Your new weapon, the whip, had simple to understand purposes or abilities, aka kill bad guys and move objects, as opposed to Staff's unpredictable spell system. I like all the clever ideas they have in here as well. The dark rooms, where you have to use your torch to figure out where you are, was pretty impressive. The special rooms with puzzles to solve have limited air in them, so you have to be pretty quick. The corridor mazes, however, have unlimited air, but are littered with energy draining henchmen. It really was a proper sequel that improved on everything the original had started. My dad also bought this one for me, based solely on that Ultimate logo on the box. He didn't even know at the time it was a sequel. Zap64 though had already informed me about that, and they awarded the game with a massive 93% overall, and even provided this nifty map, which I definitely used back then, of the entire Egyptian pyramid and its secrets. It would remain the highest rated game in the series overall according to reviews, and is the one that most people are fond of the most, including myself. The brothers continued at an unrelenting pace with the release of Blackwyche, making its debut in late 1985. This one finds Sir Arthur in his new gothic H.P. Lovecraft attire, exploring an abandoned pirate ship, which is now infested with ghosts and other supernatural creatures. The goal is to find the captain's soul and release it, thus ending the curse on the ship. Here's Dave on the inspiration behind Blackwyche, which was based on the HMS Victory, which was moored in their local port. We had seen it featured on TV and decided that a ship would be a good place for the third adventure. Bob and I went down to Portsmouth and had a good look around the ship, taking lots of photographs that we could use to base some of the graphics on. Blackwyche is a bit more action heavy than the previous two, with you now getting a sword which you can slice and dice enemies with. The game has that multi-tiered feel, a lot like Entombed, as you explore all the levels of the ship, with the decks or corridor segments being action heavy and the rooms having either traps or puzzles to solve. Plus there are plenty of objects to collect, and using the pretty simple puzzle solving. You only get one life, just like Staff, but finding gold coins revives your energy completely. This one and Entombed were the only ones I actually managed to finish as a kid without cheating back in the day, and is definitely the easiest of all the games in this series. I enjoyed the atmosphere and the adventure quite a lot, despite this game getting really mixed reviews when originally released. Zap were particularly harsh, giving it an overall 53%, which was a bit unjust. It's not as creative as Entombed or as original as Staff, but it's still pretty well-rounded, and that definitely makes it worth playing for fans of this series.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
The final entry in the series was released in early 1986 and was called DragonSkulle, and is easily the most overlooked of the sequels, which is a pity as it's pretty good in its own right, and was probably a victim of too many sequels in too short a space of time. But alas, the story has you still in full gothic attire traveling to an abandoned island that's supposed to be the resting place of the Skull of Souls, an evil artifact that is summoning all manner of monsters to the island itself. You have to find it and destroy it. Here's Dave on the disappointment of DragonSkulle's release. Given the great reviews that we had for Entombed, we felt there was little point in changing this successful formula, so we were very disappointed with the reviews for the later games. DragonSkulle in particular had dreadful reviews, which was a big surprise to all of us, as both the stampers and ourselves thought this was the best of the four adventures. This one went a bit more back to the Entombed style, with a big emphasis on exploring the island and having the special rooms to solve puzzles. You reverted back to the life system of Entombed as well. You also have a sort of spell ability just like Staff of Karnath, and also now a menu system at the top of the screen allowing you to select certain action. The shovel lets you dig things up, the cloak option makes you invincible for a short period of time, and the orbs let you throw magic bombs, at least that's what I think they are. Plus you can also jump around, but bear in mind most of these objects, just like the previous game, have to be found before you can use them, as you start off with nothing in the beginning. I was really excited to play this as a kid, as I knew it was the last of the Sir Arthur adventures, and I honestly really enjoyed it. It may have had a lot of the previous game's tropes, but again, playing this in 1986 brought a big smile to my face, and facing off against a huge dragon in any video game was always super cool, and I feel it introduced enough small new elements to make it definitely worth playing. Zap64 were very harsh again, giving it a 49%, which it did not deserve at all. Most other magazines magazines were averaging 6 to 7s out of 10, which I feel is more in line with what it deserved. Here's Dave on working with the stampers. The stampers didn't allow anyone to get credits on any of the original games they produced. This was strictly part of the deal, and at the time we were so pleased to have got the deal we didn't really care. It did become a source of frustration later on in the series, hence why I sneaked those initials onto the last game. The brothers managed to work their initials into the ending of DragonSkulle, which is the only real evidence that any of them actually worked on these games over the course of 2 years. I have really fond memories of the whole run of these games. They are not perfect in any sort of way, and may not even be considered classics, but to me, with the combination of on-screen action and my really vivid imagination, each one of Sir Arthur's quests were epic in my 10-year-old mind. Here's Dave one last time summing up the overall experience. We had a lot of fun doing the Pendragon adventures and found the stampers to be great to work for during this time. We had a huge amount of respect for them, and they were always very generous and warm people. The brothers C64 days didn't end there either, with them moving on to Elite after the Ultimate deal had ended, and made the excellent Buggy Boy one of the Commodore 64's best racing games hands down, and an excellent arcade conversion. Plus the combination of Live and Let Die and First Strike, truly a great run for the brothers on the old bread box. And that's it for the entire series. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you can please like and subscribe, that'll be greatly appreciated. I'm Bastish B, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.